Welcome to That's So Savvy, the podcast where we dive deep into the stories and journeys of remarkable business leaders. Join our host, Nancy Aichholz, a seasoned professional and experienced entrepreneur, on her mission to discover the recipe for business success.
Welcome back, Savvy listeners. It's That's So Savvy podcast. And today I have a dear friend, another Nancy, I love it, Nancy Eigel-Miller, who is here in Cincinnati and has a really rich background in her own career. And then in 2010, she founded a nonprofit that has done extremely well. And it's in the area of mental health. It's called 1 and 5, the number 1, the letter N, the number 5. Love that branding. She's going to tell you the whole story about what it's all about, but it's been such a well-received entity in our community. And I know it has saved so many lives and changed so many lives. So we're just so happy to have you here, Nancy. That's So Savvy podcast is supported by wonderful listeners like you. If you would like to hear more of our podcast and be more involved, please go to patreon.com, patreon.com, and you can donate as little as $5 a month or as much as you'd like to support That's So Savvy podcast. If you'd like to advertise and reach our rapidly growing audience, please email us at thatssosavvypod, P-O-D, @gmail.com. thatssosavvypod@gmail.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your support. And we look forward to bringing That's So Savvy podcast to you for a very long time in the future. Before we get into 1 and 5, who is Nancy Eigel-Miller?
Well, I grew up in Cincinnati. I've been in Cincinnati my entire life. I started off in the retail space. I was a buyer for Federated.
Oh.
I owned my own business, my own dress shop for a while.
I didn't know that about
Yes, it was called Belle France. It was downtown. And then I got into the marketing space and I ended up working for Gardner Business Media for 23 years. And I did marketing and market research for them. So I was in the manufacturing space. Well, I was a machine tool forecaster. We had a survey that was called the Capital Spending Survey, and it would project machine tool sales for the coming year.
Back in 2006, your life took a horrible and unexpected turn. And then this is what led to 1 and 5, right?
Right. I lost my husband to suicide, and it came totally out of the blue. I was not aware of any signs or symptoms. He had a very big personality. He was loud and goofy. And so I really started just spending time educating myself about what I had missed and what was going on in this space. And what was very clear was that there was very little prevention education that was happening. And for me personally, that would have made the difference, that I knew what I was looking at, because there were definitely signs. I just didn't know what they were.
We weren't talking so much back then
we didn't
about
talk about mental health.
Symptoms. No. And you had children.
And I had children. My children were 15 and 17 at that point. Which is a terrible age. I mean, it's always a terrible age, but, you know, they're getting ready. My oldest was getting ready to make a decision about where she was going to go to college. She was going into her senior year. It should have been really a good, fun. She was looking forward to
Prime of your life when
Prime
you're
of
young.
your life at that point. And so for me, it was just really about, my dad sat me down and he said, you've had a great life. You had a great husband. Your kids are great. And we're going to stay on the path. So what does it take? So we're going to do everything in our power to keep everybody on the path.
Yeah.
So a lot of counseling later and a lot of very frank, honest conversations and a lot of tears. And we came out on the other side and everybody is very healthy now.
Wow, that's wonderful. And I do have to say, I know your mother and I've met your dad a number of times too. And your mom is just one of the loveliest people. I used to play golf with her. We had so much fun. She just was like one of the girls, playing with some of the younger ladies and just as lovely as you are. So you're very fortunate that you had that foundation and that they were here in town.
Right, exactly.
To step in and help with your kids. Once this horrible incident occurred, then, and you get yourself through it, I'm sure it was a lot of dark days and years trying to just come out of that. What then inspired you to actually start an organization versus just learning?
When my husband died, there were 8 to 10 guys in Cincinnati that started a race that was called the Jim Miller Memorial Mile, and it was in Marymount. And they did it for 2 years. And at the end of it, the first year, there were probably 800 people there. And the second year, there was like 400 people there. And my kid said, this will go away and we will have done nothing.
Aw.
Do something.
Oh, yeah, Mom.
Yeah, Mom,
Fix
do
it.
something. Do something. So I went to those guys. I sat down and I said, okay, so I've done a lot of research. I really want to do more work in this space. Will you stay with me and can we turn this into a 5K and can we really raise some money? And they all said yes. And so then I started looking at what programs existed in Cincinnati that were doing work in that space. And there was really only one. It was at Children's Hospital. It was called Surviving the Teens. And so in 2010, we started the Warrior Run, and 100% of our proceeds went to Children's Hospital. So we did that from 2010 until 2015. And I was still working my full-time job.
Right.
And then in 2015, there was a student at UC. His name was Brogan Dolly, and he was missing for 8 days.
Mm-hmm.
Thousands of people were out looking for him, and he had died by suicide. And it was on Memorial Day weekend. And I went into work on that Tuesday, and I sent a message to Santa Ono, who was the president of UC at that point. And I said, we need to use this energy for good. And he called me instantly,
Wow.
and he said, come to my office right now. So I went to his office, and he said, let me tell you my story. He said, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder in my 20s. I've attempted suicide twice, once when I was 14, once when I was 29. I've never talked about it, and I like you, and I'll talk about it for you.
Wow.
So have an event. So it took us a year to do it, and we did it probably did it at the Magruder's house, and it was probably about a month before he left UC to go to UBC as the president. He told his story at the event. He also was really good on social media and with the media, and about an hour after he left our event, it was on every single news channel.
Oh my gosh.
It was on the front page of the Enquirer. And the next day I went to work and my phone just started ringing off the hook. And people said, how do we help you? How do we help you? And I quit my job that week.
Oh,
And I
wow.
started doing this full time.
Wow.
So the first thing we did is we got a grant really to look at what were the evidence-based programs that existed in the United States. And so we started working with schools. He said, I'm going to introduce you to all the presidents of the universities. So that's where we started. We sat down with all of them. We had Xavier, NKU, Mount St. Joe, and Cincinnati State. And we said, what are you doing in the prevention space? And they were all like, nothing. So we started talking about what that looked like. And that's really where we started making the change first. And then we started adding some high schools in there. And it's really just grown since then.
Well, and
So-
I'm sure since the whole COVID era, being on school board in my world, the difference in the stress and the mental health issues from December of 2019 until right after or during and after COVID. And still, it's
Right.
because now what we're seeing in our high schools are these little kiddos that were in elementary school and they were so affected, and that we're just seeing those kids grow up, and the level of stress, a lot of it seems internal.
Mm-hmm.
So it's fascinating. And I'm loving that you're now getting down into the high schools
Mhm.
and working with those kids. So let's talk a little bit about the preventive aspect of it, because obviously it's too late when it's too late.
Right.
So what are some things that you learned about signs and prevention that now you are implementing in these schools? And we'll get back to all the other things you're doing.
Well, I think that the biggest thing that people need to know is that there are very definite signs that exist. The people's sleep pattern changes, their friends change, they pull away from people, they start having risky behavior. Like if they're in school, their grades start dropping, or they're misbehaving a lot more, they're getting into trouble. There's a dramatic change in their behavior. Like in my husband's case, he lost 20 pounds. He was not sleeping very well. He had a whole group of guys he went out to lunch with every day. He stopped going out to lunch with them. He wrote thank yous to people. Things like that. There are very definite signs that something's going on.
Okay.
And so for us, it's really just educating people and then to give them the skills that they can ask the questions. And the biggest thing is that you need to talk to somebody very non-judgmentally.
Right.
You need
Right.
to just really listen. So I noticed that something's going on with you. I noticed that your grades are dropping, or I noticed you're not hanging out with your friends anymore. What's going on? I'm
Yeah.
concerned.
Right.
And then listen. because they'll almost always tell you. They will tell you what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And then to should be the person that's going to bridge that gap. You're not supposed to be the person that's going to take care of them.
Right.
But you are the person that really should get them to the help that they need. So if you're in a school environment, to get them to a counselor or to get them to a social worker or somebody, a nurse, somebody in the building that can help them. Or if it's your life, maybe you call 988 with them. So you have a professional on the phone that can actually talk to them.
You start these programs that Santa Ono helped you make the entrees into some of these schools. And then how did the organization itself grow and blossom during that time? Because now it's a full-blown organization with how many people are on your staff?
20 now.
Nice.
So I think the biggest thing that we talk about a lot is historically in this space, the social service agencies were doing that kind of work. And they do it from a very clinical standpoint. They're doing it like, we're going to tell you all the facts, and it's more shock and trauma, where we're going to scare you. We're not going to give you the language to really have a conversation with somebody. Where we really do it from that hope, help, and strength standpoint. We're going to teach you tools. We're going to get you up talking to each other, interacting, and figuring out how you can have a conversation in a more open, honest way than what most people are used to. And so that's really the difference, and really nobody else is doing that. It takes a personality. It takes vulnerability, because you need to be in the space. You need to connect with people. We play games. We get people up sharing what's going on in their life. And it takes that vulnerability that a lot of people are uncomfortable with.
These are things that you're doing in the actual school settings.
Mm-hmm.
So you're working directly with the kids in the schools.
We do. So there's a House Bill 123 that was passed in the state of Ohio. Going into the school year will be the second school year that it needs to be implemented. And it requires that there be 1 hour of suicide prevention education, 6th through the 12th grade, which in my mind is nothing. 1 hour a year, that's nothing.
1 hour a year.
1 hour a year. It actually starts the conversation better than 2 years ago. So we do a lot of that education because teachers are not really comfortable having that conversation. There are programs that have been chosen by the Ohio Department of Education that can fulfill the needs of that. But we really want it to be a conversation. Some of the programs are just plug and play, where you put in a tape and you hit it, and that's not a good option, because we want people talking about it. But then we also really do, over time, that, that's really in that suicide prevention space. But over time, we've really gone more upstream as to figure out, how do you take care of your brain? What does that look like? What are protective factors? How do you build resiliency in people? And for people to understand what that looks like. And it's really very basic. It's like, what are your friend relationships? What are your family relationships? Who are the people? Who are your trusted adults? What are the things that bring you happiness? Is it going for a walk? Is it playing sports? Is it listening to music? What does that look like for you? And making sure that everybody understands what that looks like for them. And then the people that are in their sphere understand what it looks like for somebody else. So I would understand what it looks like for you, and you would understand what it looks like for me.
Okay.
So if you start to be concerned about somebody, and maybe they like to go for walks, say, "Oh, I feel like you're stressed right now. I feel like you're not in a good place. Let's go for a walk."
Oh, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What I'm loving about how much more open we are about mental health conversations is that we all worry about our physical health, and we pay attention to it. And if we're being responsible, we're taking care of that, and we're proactive. There's so much more preventive medicine, reactive medicine now. And our financial health, pre-planning, not getting yourself into trouble first, making sure that you have control of your finances. And to me, the mental health aspect is just one more layer of that, of our total well-being. And it's just great that we're finally at the point where we talk, it's not a stigma, it's not a bad thing. We all have mental health, and we all want it to be good mental health, and we want everybody that we love to have a good mental health. So I think it's wonderful that we're not just focusing on where the problems already have happened, and that we're already, that we're
being in that preventative space.
Well, exactly. And it's all ages. You focus a lot on the schools, but are there other things going on for older adults or even younger children?
So right now we work with about 320 schools in 14 counties. And then we work with right now about 85 community organizations doing the same kind of training. So really anybody that's either interacting with, they have a staff that they're managing, or they're interacting with the public where they're being exposed to people that could be really struggling. And then we've started doing that also corporately.
Okay.
So in schools, we do it with students, staff, and parents. So it's really the whole gamut of individuals that we're training.
And when you are involved with the school, is it a done in a day kind of thing, or is it an ongoing program?
It should be ongoing programs. We really like to be in there at least 4 times a year. It's quarterly where there's exposure across the board to everybody, including the staff. Parents are a little bit more difficult now since the pandemic. It's really difficult to get them to show up right now. So for us, trying to figure out what that looks like, we're working like out in parks or at the libraries, or now that corporate space where you can get in front of parents when they're at work.
Yeah. Now, you keep saying we, and I know you have, it sounds like a lot, but just 20 on your staff. So who is we?
I have how many? I have a development person, a grant writer, operations, and then really everybody else is on the program team. Okay. So I have a team that does schoolwork, and then we have a corporate and a community person.
So then do you have a volunteer core
we
of
do.
people that are trained?
We do. So we do a lot of tabling as well out in the community, where we'll go to like a health fair and we'll have resources that we give away. We have a lot of brochures that cover different topics like anxiety and depression or eating disorders, that kind of thing. And then we also have events that we're doing. So we still have the Warrior Run. We have our Spring for Life event. So we do need a lot of volunteers.
And about how many volunteers do you think you employ throughout the year?
At the Warrior Run, we have like 350 people out.
That's terrific. So this organization has been very well received in this community. How far out from the Cincinnati region do you go?
Probably about an hour and a half circle from Cincinnati. So up to like Dayton, out to like Paint Valley.
Okay.
Really over to the Indiana border, not in Indiana yet, and then into northern Kentucky.
Okay.
So we just hired a Kentucky program manager last year.
Nice.
And we've made great strides in Kentucky as well.
Good. They're great with their schools over there. They want support to come in for all different kinds of things. I've been kind of impressed with that.
Yeah.
And what about any online resources that are, because we have a lot of listeners that aren't in this region, are there online resources?
Absolutely. We just actually redid our common conditions page on our website. So you can now go in and look at depression, and you can look at all the different materials that we have produced. We also have links out to a lot of other resources that exist out there. Plus we have podcasts, we have printed materials, we have going out to other organizations that are in the space as well.
That is terrific.
The name 1 in 5, historically, 1 in 5 people is impacted with a mental health condition in the general population. It has changed since the pandemic. It's now 1 in 4 adults and 1 in 3 youth.
So now we all kind of blame COVID, but what do you think it is? I mean, we're past COVID. So
if you think about what's going on in our world today, I mean, you add in the social media, you add in the phone, a lot of that is really impacted, especially youth mental health.
Yeah.
But if you also just look at people are angry, there was a lot of social isolation. There are a lot of things that have happened in the last 5 years that have impacted people's mental health. And I think also coming back from the pandemic, the younger generation was very, very adamant that they wanted to speak out about it. Like, I'm not okay. I'm coming back into this situation. I haven't been in school. I've had social isolation. A lot of my life things, my milestones, I lost all of those things.
Yeah,
they're grieving. They also didn't have those, like if you looked at the younger kids, there's a lot of issues with really young kids' mental health because those kids didn't learn how to share
and see each other's faces.
And so they come back now into the school building where they now have to be with other kids, but they've lost like 2 years of their life of learning. And so their mental health is not that great. There's a lot of anger issues and frustration and social isolation. They don't know how to make a friend.
Well, and then you have the added layers of, unfortunately, so many children lost family members, whether it was parents or grandparents, other extended family or neighbor, just people they knew. Which that's a lot.
It's a lot to take.
Most of us get through our childhood with peripheral death around us, just, kind of natural. But then when all of a sudden people are dying around you and it's all you're hearing on the news. And so that I can't even imagine what that did to little brains.
Mm-hmm. It had a dramatic impact, I think, across the board on everyone. If you look at how people operate today, it's different.
Oh, for sure.
It's like if you have an event, nobody signs up early. Everybody waits until the last second to sign up because it's like, I don't know how I'm going to feel that day. I'm not going to push myself. I need to be home by myself. That's what I'm going to do.
I also feel like as a society in general, not necessarily the children, but I see it even in adults in professional situations, the social skills fell off the map. Like, how can that be that we had our entire life to be socialized and then all of a sudden in a year or so, it gets blown up?
It's true. Like people don't respond to emails anymore. They don't return phone calls.
Right.
They just...
And it blows me away.
Yeah.
Like, I don't get it. A couple people here and there that, particularly in business, when I'm actually trying to reach someone and they just can't seem to text back, but they certainly, they're on their phone.
Right. No.
It's frustrating.
It's a sort of a mentality of, I don't feel the responsibility that, I'm going to take care of myself. And I don't feel the responsibility. If it makes me uncomfortable, I'm not going to do it. A lot of interns who are in college, and we really work with them a lot on their skills, their social skills, because we'll ask them to make phone calls and they're like, I can't make a phone call. And you're like, if you go and you start working, you're going to have to get on the phone.
Right.
You're going to have to talk to people on the phone. Right. And they're like, it makes me so uncomfortable. And you're like, texting to somebody in a business situation will not work.
Right. You have to have the conversation.
You have to be able to have a conversation with another person.
And I remember, this goes back to when I was a child, that I would say to my dad, let's go to such and such store and I want to buy X. And he'd say, well, you need to call that store and ask them if they have that in stock and what the price is before I drive you over there. And he would give me the phone number. I was little. I remember being probably kindergarten or maybe young. I'd have to dial the phone and he would tell me what to say. And I would get on the phone with the store and find out if they had that magic item that I wanted and if my little allowance could afford it. So I think we maybe need to go back to some of those basic skills. But then the problem is you got to get the people on the other end to answer
somebody
the phone.
Has to answer it.
Exactly. Where are you now with 1 in 5? What are some things on the horizon that you're excited about that people should know about?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that looking at from a holistic standpoint in society, how do we get to everybody? How do we get the message out to all the different pockets, all the different demographics? We've started doing some work in the elder population, and we know that suicide is the number is very high in that space. Men is another area. Men are very resistant to having this conversation. So how do you change the conversation so that it resonates with them? There is something called man therapy, and it's men humor, and it's bringing in that conversation. Yeah. But I think looking at how do you change what you're doing to morph so that it resonates with the different populations. And then I think also for us, it's looking at we have grown very, very, very fast. And what does that look like? How big do we want to be? Do we want to be in the entire state of Ohio? And if we do, how are we going to do that? What's that going to look like? Because we can't do it from Cincinnati. We'd have to have offices in different places, or we'd have to do a train the trainer. We'd have to do something that was different. Because we know what we're doing is different, and we know that people are very hungry to get this kind of information. So what does that look like for us?
Is that sort of your dream for the organization to be expanded like that, or still trying to figure out what's reasonable, what's sustainable?
I'm probably trying to figure out what's reasonable and sustainable. For the most part, most of what we're doing is grant funded, so it always comes down to the money.
Of course it does.
For me, it's a nonprofit. Mm-hmm. It's not. I'm not doing this it's not my ego. It's not to make money. It's to do service in this space. It's all about the money. So you have to raise that money to be able to do it.
Who are your major grant?
So we're very fortunate because we really have a diverse revenue streams. Right. We have about 85 corporate sponsors, which is something that when I first started the Warrior Run, we had a race manager who at that point told me to go have a bake sale. I would make as much money as I did doing a race. And so I sat my dad down and I said, tell me every president of a company that you know. So I called them all up and I said, what are you doing about mental health? And every single person said nothing. And I said, okay, well, you're going to support us. We're going to change that today. And they did. They all said yes. So we still have a lot of those same people. And so that's one area. We have individual donations. Mm-hmm. We have our 2 events. We have regular family philanthropy, and then we have gotten some government money of late, but we have no federal funds. It's all state money.
It's a little bit more manageable.
It is.
When you have to do your reporting.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
not all bad. What about the education system in Ohio? Are they looking like, well, I mean, who knows what's going on with the education system anywhere? Is there funding opportunities there?
Very little. I mean, I think it's going to get worse as we move forward because a lot of that funding is being cut.
Right. They don't know what they're doing with their own departments.
No.
Which is unfortunate.
I mean, I think for us looking at corporate, that is definitely a revenue stream for us from a corporate standpoint. They can afford to pay for the education.
And it's their future workforce.
And it's their, absolutely.
Yeah. So they have a vested interest and they care.
They do care.
Particularly in this community, I think we are unusually blessed with very generous corporations and companies and family businesses and individuals too.
Right.
Now, do you partner with other organizations, whether local or statewide?
We do. A lot of the times we'll go in and somebody will say, like, I want to do mindfulness training. We could do it, but that's not our main emphasis. And so we'll partner with somebody else, or I want to do yoga. And we'll partner with somebody else who can come in and do that for us. We really work a lot with Mind Peace, which is another nonprofit that they work with the agencies to put therapists into buildings. And then we really work a lot with Children's Hospital.
And let's say you're in a school and you are teaching, learning, working together with the staff, the teachers, the parents, the kids, and you see or hear some red flags. What happens then?
We stop what's happening and we talk to the child with the teacher, and then there should be a system in place, a crisis plan in place in that school. All schools now have those. We put something that we call the red folder, which is forcing the school to lay all those things out for their particular school. So it has the person, it has a situation, who you would call in that situation. So everybody in the building should be aware of what the next step should be.
Obviously, you feel great about the impact that you're making and seeing the prevention and all that, but this is a heavy topic. How do you, Nancy, take care of your own mental health and the mental health of your staff who are surrounded all the time by this topic?
Personally, I'm a meditator. So I get up in the morning. That's what I do every morning is I meditate before I start my day. I'm also really good at just shutting it off. I work a lot, but when I'm not working, I'm also not thinking about it. And then I also I know the things that make me happy. It's being outside. It's being with friends. It's listening to music. And I'm an introvert. And so I know that I need to be able to recharge. And so I'm very, very strict about my time. I have very strong boundaries of nope. Sorry, I need to go home tonight. And then for our staff, we're very adamant about how many trainings can they do in a week? What does that look like? And then we also have just within our space, every Monday, we pretty much have a team day where we're having meetings, having conversations, and it's very intentional conversations about, is this too heavy? What are you seeing? How do we support each other in that space? And then once a month on Fridays, we have a team day. So we do something fun. We go axe throwing. We do something like that.
I've never done axe throwing. I think when you're having a bad day, that sounds like a really good thing to go do.
Exactly. Get that aggression out.
Hit something, throw something that doesn't hurt anybody.
Exactly.
That's exactly. Well, what else would you like to talk about the organization? What have we not covered?
I mean, I think the biggest thing that we say to everyone is that everybody has a brain. So everybody has mental health, and that just to really make it a priority that you are educated, that you're not afraid, because that's the biggest thing that we see even in schools today. A lot of teachers will say, I'm afraid. I can't have that conversation with somebody. We see it with doctors who say, I'm a clinician, and so I'm trained to talk. I'm trained to actually say stuff to you. So if a student comes into for a physical or something, and I ask them questions and we start to go down this road of mental health, I'm going to start preaching to them. And really just to step back and to say, okay, I'm going to listen to this person. I'm going to be vulnerable and sit back and see what they have to say and see how, because they'll talk to you always. Someone will talk to you always.
If you open the door.
If you open the door, they will always talk to you. And so allow people to have that space.
Yeah. One kind of question I have in mental health in general is that it does feel like there's a lot more conversation. It does feel like there's a lot more opportunity to get ahead of issues before it's too late. But I also feel like women in particular that the first default is putting you on some kind of medication. And I think we also see that maybe with children and youth.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think it's a complicated problem. It's complicated because there aren't enough practitioners. It's complicated because there's not a diversity among practitioners. And so right now, from the time that there's the first signs until they get help is 8 to 10 years. 8 to 10 years.
Oh my gosh.
We talk a lot about by the age of 14, 50% of mental illness has surfaced. By the age of 24, 75% has surfaced. And today it takes 8 to 10 years to get service. So if you think about if you first see signs when you're 14, but you wait till you're 24, you're pretty far down the road. And so if you now go to a therapist, they're going to take dramatic measures, most likely. But if you would have come down here, you could have maybe started going for walks and figuring out what brought you joy and worked on relationships. So it looks very different based on where you are in that continuum.
And I think another myth is that people that have mental health challenges have had an incident. And I don't think that's really true.
No,
I mean, they may have.
They may have. It could have been a trauma. It could have been something that happened that brought it on. But a lot of times it's just, a lot of it is genetic. And so every situation is different. But really just looking at it and trying to understand where is it coming from. Like a lot of kids today struggle with anxiety. And that's just really something that it's from society. It's like our world. Our world is putting a lot of pressure on these kids.
It's incredible.
We do a lot of research and we ask them, like, how much sleep are they getting? How many hours of extracurriculars? How much are you sleeping? And they're sleeping probably about 6 hours, which is 2 hours less than, so they're cognitively impaired every single day. But then we ask them, where's the pressure coming from? And it's pressure from self. Like, I feel shame, I feel guilt, I don't feel like I stack up, kinds of things. I'm never good enough, kind of a thing. And so they're constantly putting pressure on themselves.
But so much of that comes from what they're seeing around them. It could be family dynamics. It could be a lot of things. What I've really loved seeing just in the last few years, I think really since COVID in our high schools, even our very high achieving high schools, is that we're not necessarily pushing every child to go to a 4-year college. There's so many more gap years. There's trade schools, there's starting a business and working on that for a few years and then determining what kind of education you would like to get, further education. Another thing I noticed was that we would send these really high achieving, very bright kiddos off to hoity-toity fancy pants schools. And that's great, but they were home in a year. They were miserable. They weren't ready for it. It wasn't the right thing. Or it was everybody else thought that that's what they should do.
Right.
And then they got there and it wasn't all that, or it just wasn't right for them. And then they're home and they feel like that's a failure. Whereas actually, I think that's a win. If you go somewhere and it's not right for you, then change.
Well, there's a book that's called Who You Are. What is it? Where You Go Is Not Who You'll Be.
Oh, interesting.
And it talks a little bit about the Ivy League schools and the reality of the kids that are at the Ivy League schools all pretty much have grown up together. They've gone to summer camps. They've been in the same circles. And if you take somebody from the Midwest and you put them into that space, they don't have peers. There's nobody that looks like them that is going to be in that same space. And so that's why a lot of times those kids come back and they're like, I don't belong here. I don't feel like I can succeed in this space.
Yeah.
And so then if you look at historically, if you look at people that have been very, very successful and you look at where they went to schools, they're not at those schools. They're across the board at all different kinds of schools. And so just trying to get the message to kids that it's like, find a school that feels right for you.
It's not where you go, it's what you do with it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Firmly believe in that, because it shouldn't be what your parents can afford because you've killed yourself in high school and missed all the fun. I'm not saying don't get good grades, kids. Right. No. I'm saying do your best.
Yeah.
But you don't, what I always said to my kids, they took all the APs and they were all athletes. It was the 24/7 cycle. But if you don't know it by 10 o'clock at night,
you're not going to know it at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Go to bed. Because if you stay up, you won't know anything in the morning.
Exactly.
And that worked for my kids. Sleep, I was just kind of like the sleep police.
Is important.
In our household, with my husband's crazy OB schedule, sleep was at a premium anyway. So it's like, you know what? This house is shutting down at 10 o'clock. And because we were up and moving at 5:45, we were able to get the school start time in our school district moved later. Wasn't probably as late as it needed to be, but it was the best we could do with multiple schools and the after-school sports. Every so often, it was a job that a kid might have. But that sleeping a little bit later, not getting up when it was dark, standing out for the bus when it was dark, that made, I thought, a big difference.
Huge difference.
Yeah.
Right.
And I could see my daughter went to school. She was a couple years older, and so she was still on the old schedule, and then my boys were on the new schedule, and I was like,
the dramatic difference.
We should have done this sooner.
It is. It's a dramatic difference. And I think the other thing that we say to kids all the time is find your joy. What brings you joy? Make sure it's part of your life.
Yeah, I love that.
Like if you're studying and you're doing extracurriculars and it takes up all your time, where's the space for the joy?
I think another thing, and I notice this with adults and kids, is just people need to laugh.
Yeah.
They need to just belly laugh and find things that are silly.
Yeah.
And I remember just being so silly with my girlfriends in high school, and even college. Like, if anybody was watching, well, I'm sure we looked like complete idiots, but that's okay because we had so much fun, and we're all still friends. Mm-hmm. We all still get together and get silly and funny and have a great time and look like idiots. And that's it.
You're laughing. Laughter is good.
Laughter is really good. It's good. Well, this has been very eye-opening. It's sad to me that there's so much need, but I'm so glad that you're doing what you're doing. And I think you're a great role model and example for other communities that could replicate this. Nancy, what brings you joy?
What brings me joy? My kids, first of all, and being outside. Yeah. I just got my knee replaced, and so I'm not really outside right now. And it's just like, I feel like my summer is like, where's my summer?
I know. Well, we need to get you a chair outside.
Exactly.
Well, and it's been actually a fairly decent summer late. The last few days, maybe not with everything, but the heat, but it's been a pretty decent summer to be outside. So we need to get you back
outside.
There.
Yep,
exactly. Well, thank you so much, Nancy. And we wish 1 in 5 the best. Anything that we can do to help.
All right. Well, thank you.